everyone, and welcome back to Speedrunners and Coffee. Today, my guest is an accomplished speedrunner having a grand total of 3 world records in 2 different games. Running Stonefly, Xenoclash 2, and the Spyro Reignited trilogy, more specifically Year of the Dragon, Roadkill Revenge. How are you doing
Hello.
today?
I am doing wonderful, and I'm happy to be here, even though I don't have coffee. I,
Oh
I
no.
finished mine a little early.
That's too bad. You are now banned from the pod.
I
I'm
am
joking. I'm
banned.
kidding. All right. So, how did you get into speedrunning?
That is the excellent choice of opening questions, I imagine. I got into speedrunning because there was a pandemic and I was bored. Is the short answer. The longer answer is that I had definitely been like aware of it peripherally. And I can't remember exactly what video I came across. It was somebody running Spyro Ignited trilogy. I don't think it was even 3, which is the one that I eventually ended up picking up. But I just remember being like entranced by it. I just felt like it was so fun to watch. And then I went down a huge rabbit hole of like researching just random games. And then I was just like, well, what if I just try do it? And so I just did that. It took me like a long time to pick like what game to start with because I wanted it to be like the right one. I knew I wanted to speedrun something. Then I picked up Spyro because it's one of my favorite series and I'm still really bad at it, but it's really fun.
That's fair. Did you have any initial goals for the run when you started?
I didn't at all because I really just picked it up just for the fun of it more than anything. Because one of the reasons why there's a couple reasons why just doing it in general really appealed to me. Because I really like competitive games, but sometimes dealing with other people is what I don't like about them, and so there's a lot of appeal to just doing it just to compete strictly with myself. Like I didn't really have any high lofty goals for leaderboards or anything. I just was really interested in just beating my own times. But also as a game developer, I was really interested in speedrunning, and so I was just interested in learning about random games and sort of how they work from like a different perspective. As weird as that is, like there's a lot of stuff you can really figure out how games work by seeing how they can be broken. So yeah, I didn't really enter with any goals other than just to entertain myself, and I very quickly got way more into it than I expected to.
That's fair. Now, has speedrunning in has speedrunning affected you as a game developer? Like, are you adding things for speedrunners? Like a lot of games today are starting to do that. For example, The Last of Us Part 1 actually has a speedrunner mode. So is there any sort of like influences as a speedrunner that are coming into your game development?
Not so much yet, mostly because the one like game that I've shipped is not very suitable for speedrunning. It's a sim management game. Um, but I definitely have gotten like ideas from doing it. Like I have in particular, I've so another thing that I've very recently gotten into is randomizers, and most specifically the Kingdom Hearts 2 randomizer. And in learning more about how randomizers worked, I just have been increasingly shocked that there hasn't been a game that is structured like we have roguelikes, and it's not the same thing at all though. I feel like there's a lot of room for interesting ways of taking the way that the way that people find their own fun in games, which is really like what speedrunning is, right? It's just like taking the game and finding your own way to get like enjoyment out of it. I feel like that there's definitely a lot to learn from a developer just by thinking about it that way.
That's fair. Is there a game that you regret running or a game you wish you had continued to learn? I know that you're still very new in this space and don't have a lot of games, but is there anything like for you at this point?
Definitely not anything I regret running or I feel like was a waste of time or anything like that. Even, considering that a lot of the games I run have very, very small communities of runners, one of which is just myself and one other person, and the other which is basically the same. But no, I mean, I honestly love just like learning a ridiculous amount of knowledge about something that doesn't matter. Like that's a weird way to say that, but I feel like even if I learned a game that I gave up on or didn't like or didn't continue with, I feel like just having gained like knowledge of just little bits of routes and stuff is just really fulfilling to do. So yeah, I feel like that I wouldn't have that attitude, but that remains to be seen. I'm planning on learning more reignited categories and stuff like that. And I don't know. There's a lot of opinions about some of them, I'm sure.
That's very fair. What goes into your decision making for learning a game?
Usually lack of impulse control. I don't know. I really like to just speedrun games that I love casually. That's really really important to me. I don't think I would ever pick up a game and just learn the speedrun without having already really enjoyed the game. And basically every time I get the itch to learn a new speed game, I just sit there and think, okay, what game did I love, and just want a reason to play more. Even if it's a game that has never been like speedrun before and I have to route it myself, which is what I did with Stonefly. Obviously, like some games have types of speedruns that I'm not super interested in, like ones that use like very frame perfect tricks that just glitch to the end credits or whatever. Those very very technical glitchy speedruns I'm not nearly as interested in. But ones that have unique mechanics and stuff, and usually ones that require at least some interesting movement, are things that I in particular look for. But those are also games that I just like play in general, so it sort of lines up.
Very fair. And a great segue into the next question, since you mentioned you speedrun games that you love casually. Is there a game that you love but would never run?
Yes, probably, because I have looked into the speed run for it before, and there's probably several of them that I've done this. I've been like, what is this? What would the speed run to this be like? And then I'm just like, no. And the one that immediately came to mind is Pyre, which is one of Supergiant's their game before one of their games before Hades. And it's absolutely one of my favorite games of all time. But the speed run is just it's just like 90% just spamming inputs through dialogue, of which there is a great deal. And then watching a cart move slowly across a like beautiful background, and then little bursts of gameplay here and there. So I feel like the speedrun would be extremely like boring. Not to say I will never do it, because again I love it so much and it would give me a reason to play it more, but I really wanted to want to speedrun that game and was just like, no, this run I can't even, like, watching this run is boring. I could probably, I don't know if I could stick with it. So yeah, that's the thing that definitely popped into my head at first.
That's very fair. Now, is there a game that you're looking forward to running coming up? I know you mentioned that you were going to do some other reignited categories, but anything outside of reignited?
Yeah. I have like a long list of random games that I want to eventually learn to run. One big one is Neon White. I've learned the routes on the Switch at least, which is a little bit harder. It's a little bit different than the console or the PC route, as you might imagine. I have done the run a couple times, but I haven't submitted anything, and I'd really love to come back and like actually do that. And lots of just random obscure indie games. Those are some of my favorite games to give a little more love to, in the form of speedrunning. In particular, the one that I've been eyeing for whenever, I'm done with whenever I want to break from Spyro is probably going to be I'm actually not sure if you heard this game. It's called Paradise Killer.
I have not.
It's like a murder mystery game with some really interesting movement mechanics. It's also a very strange vaporwave setting with really good music. It's a very cool game, and the speedrun is surprisingly interesting, at least for some of the categories. So yeah, I've got a laundry list of random indies that I want to learn really bad.
Very fair. Do you see yourself going to the original Spyros?
I've definitely thought about it. It's just it's surprisingly different. Like I've done quite a bit of research about it, and I watched the original game Speedrunners very very frequently. But at the same time, it's just the cool thing about the Reignited trilogy is that you can take the skills that you learn for one speedrun and it just applies very very cleanly to the other games. Because they're all made in the same engine and it's all very consistent. Each game has their own tricks and their own nuances, but it's just very transferable. I definitely am interested in it though, but I imagine I'm probably not gonna make the leap until after I've like fully gotten sort of bored of reignited categories. I do not see that happening anytime soon.
Very fair. Do you see yourself going to the other PS1 Sony mascot, Crash Bandicoot?
Oh, Probably not. So as a kid I played both of them a lot, as most kids of a certain age did. And but Spyro was my boy. He was my I have a lot of like nostalgia for the series, and I do for Crash as well. But it's just I don't know. Spyro's. I just love the way the movement works, the sort of 3D camera manipulation, the sort of more strict arcadey platformer style doesn't appeal to me quite as much. It could happen. Somebody dares me to, I might do it, but no immediate plans. No.
Very fair. I just had to ask that as a Crash runner myself.
Yeah, you have to, right?
Because, like, the thing is, I never played the PlayStation 1 mascot games because
Uh-huh.
I never had a PlayStation 1 till like 2004. So by that time, it was like, oh, they are long gone, long dead, at that point.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
so
they're not.
my
They
first
aged well, but
experience
it's not super accessible. So.
with those was this year when I got the Crash trilogy. I still haven't played the Spyro trilogy. I know, boo hiss.
Boo.
But yeah. However, I
Yeah,
have more experience with the PS2 mascots than I do with the PS1 mascots, quote unquote.
yeah, give me all of them. I love them all. Give me Sly Cooper. I'm all about those games too. I will say though, I have like the main reason I eventually like pulled the trigger so to speak and decided to get into speedrunning was just like revisiting the nostalgia I have for the Spyro games because it was literally the first video game I ever played ever was Spyro 1. So it sort of just felt like it made sense in a very full circle kind of way.
That's also very fair. So, do you have any influences from the speedrun world?
Oh gosh. I mean the most obvious ones have got to be the people in the Spyro speedrunning community. There's a lot of people in that community that blow my mind with the sort of stuff that they can pull off and just the sheer level of like movement mastery that I still after it being the first game I chose to speedrun and it's almost exactly a year later now. It's just mind blowing to me. So I'm constantly watching and studying their runs and definitely learning and asking questions from those folks. Other than that, I watch like I don't know. I just like watching random speed runs, like stuff I don't know anything about. Sometimes can be just really entertaining to watch and just learn about. That's why I love marathons and things like that. So I don't know if other than that, if I have any huge influences in terms of like people.
Okay, that's also fair. Any event rituals?
Event rituals. You mean just like for like marathons or just like for doing speed running in general?
Both, if whatever you want to whatever you want to say.
Man, I don't know if I really have many rituals. I do the closest thing probably is that one thing I've really noticed is through pivoting to playing a lot of speed games from playing games casually before is needing to do very being very vigilant about doing wrist exercises. So almost every time I'm about to stream or about to be on an event, I very much before and after will stretch my wrist. I broke my wrist last year and it's 2 years ago now, and it means that I just have to be really careful about not stressing it out too much. So I have like a huge like wrist stretch routine that I do, and just like anything else, like it's surprising to me how much like it feels super silly to say, but how like physical speed running can be, like how tired it makes me, just from like focusing so hard and like I don't know. So I try to do things that I can to take care of my eyes and my wrists and my brain as much as I can.
Very fair. Any games you're currently playing casually, offline, on stream?
Yeah, I mostly only stream speed games. Occasionally, I will stream other things, but I am currently playing. We said this before we started recording, but I'm currently playing Final Fantasy VIII, the remake, for the first time. And I've been really enjoying it as somebody that's played and enjoyed many of the other games in the franchise. I have lots of just random competitive games that I pick up and play. I'm one of those people that, other than like I'll usually have one game I'm currently playing that's like a long form game, right? That I'll play from start to finish. But then most days I'll just pick up and go through like a cycle of random other games to play like a couple matches here and there. I play a whole lot of Magic the Gathering Arena, like a lot. um, I've been playing this game called Omega Strikers and Vampire Survivors, and so basically it's just a bounce between those things and then whatever long form game I'm playing currently.
All right, very cool. What are your opinions on IGT in game time versus RTA
Ooh.
real time attack?
See, this is actually a very interesting question to ask a Spyro Reignited speedrunner because there's a lot going on there with those that very much change the way the runs are handled, and I will say that in general my opinion is just it depends on the game, but that's not a very interesting answer. So yeah, I mean, because was with the Spyro trilogy, the console versions of the game run on in-game time in order to account for differences in people's hardware and stuff, and the different consoles have different loading times as well. However, that means that the strats are actually different on console. Not just because there's different tricks that you can't do, but also because there are weird things that pause the in-game timer. In general, I think games benefit from loadless timers where possible, but a lot of games with smaller communities don't really have the resources to like make auto splitters and stuff for that. But it is really nice to have on PC for games that have it. So I feel like that's generally like what I prefer. I don't want to be stressed out by a loading screen taking longer than normal, taking up time wherever possible. But a lot of that is because a lot of my runs are on PC where things are a little bit less more variable than they are on like a lot of older OG hardware.
That's very fair. Yeah, I know for the Crash games, they use a load remover across
Mm-hmm.
the board, but I don't know how easy that is to make. Because I run quite a few games that do IGT. I run games that
Mm-hmm.
do RTA mostly, and I think Crash is the only one that has a load remover that I run.
Yeah, I've definitely done all three in different contexts, and it feels like the comfiest is always the loadless timer. Because I don't think they don't have a load remover. They just have an auto splitter that pauses the timer. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with Crash, it's specifically anytime the screen is black, it'll pause the timer, but you need to have
Mm-hmm.
a thing in Live Split that's capturing your OBS, is what
Oh,
it's
that's
doing.
weird.
Yeah,
I
it's a
will
very
say,
specific program.
I will say that I feel like, other than in like very extraneous circumstances or for very popular games, it can be like a real big shame to have to like install things or modify the game in some way in order to be able to speedrun it, because I feel like they tend to make those games feel less accessible games for people getting into that game. But anything that's like an extra step of difficulty to set up. Because I remember even when I first got started being completely overwhelmed by just live split in general. So having to like install a load remover and or like or things like that. Yeah, I generally prefer when games don't have to worry about that. I feel like that's a little bit of a different conversation though.
Yeah. What was your proudest moment as a runner?
My proudest moment as a runner is probably with Stonefly. So that's, like I said earlier, that's a game that I've routed and I'm super proud of, and it's my baby. Eventually a new runner picked up the game and started running it and was super, excited about it, which is always really cool to see somebody that, something that I worked hard on, somebody else actually like read all the documents I wrote and stuff like that to run the game. And we were both submitting the game. I think we decided this was like a couple months after, like, the game was new stuff was getting found and stuff like that. We were gonna try and submit it to AGDQ, I think. And he was recording a submission video, and he like blasted my world record out of the water with his submission video. And at first I was really dejected about this. I was like, wow, like literally, like, so that's gonna be his, like, not only was it his like GDQ submission video, but like so quick he took my record down. I then proceeded to do one run of the game and then I like beat that record by like 4 minutes. That
Oh,
record's still the one that stands, by the way. And I just, it was a very nice sort of like vindication moment of like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna do it again. And even though it's just the two of us that have been competitive about it, it was just a nice moment of me feeling better about my own skills with the game.
fair. And to the contrary to that question, what was your lowest moment as a runner?
So I'm actually I do this with all of my hobbies. I will or play or just do them pretty obsessively for like a month, and I'll tend to like drop them for a month and then come back to them later. Which is not super beneficial for grinding a record of speedrunning, right? Taking a month break every however frequently. Your skills get rusty, right?
Mhm.
However, I'm just back off of one of those breaks with Spyro in particular because I've been really pushing hard to I was really pushing hard to get a specific time goal in that game, which is sub 50 minutes of loadless time. And I kept being like 2 minutes ahead of my PB and then losing a minute and a half or plus to this one specific very finicky trick. And it kept happening over and over again. I was consistently ahead and the same trick was messing with me. And I got so frustrated that and I think my lowest moment was just the fact that I did that. I feel like I should have just, moved on to another category or whatever. I was just disappointed in myself for giving up after I was so close. And I'm just now at the point to where I've almost derusted back to where I was when I quit. And it's going great and I'm having a fun time. So we'll see if it happens again.
Well, that's good at least. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, speedrunning wise?
Oh my gosh, that is a very hard question to answer considering I've been speedrunning for a year. And like, like 6 months of that I wasn't even doing it at all in the middle. But that being said, I would love to do more marathons. This last couple of months I've been getting way more involved with the broader like speedrunning community, doing stuff like I'm doing right now on the show and being more active with Lady Arcaders and getting into frame fatals, which I'm still in shock over. I'd really like to keep doing that and just being more involved in volunteering because this has been something that has really like improved my life, as cheesy as it is to say. I've been motivated and being able to accomplish my goals and then just having a fun time. And I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll get popular and actually be able to make a little side gig money off of Twitch. We'll see. I'm
Very fair.
optimistic.
And before we get to the last game question, this is a show called Speedrunners and Coffee, so of course,
Mhm.
what is your favorite coffee?
My favorite coffee is whatever's in my fridge. I actually used to be a very big like quote unquote coffee snob. I as funny as this is gonna be, I was a coffee snob that worked at Starbucks. But I learned a lot about how coffee works there, and then after I didn't work there anymore, I was super into really fancy coffee. Now I just get whatever. I usually buy prefab like refrigerated coffee in the fridge, and that is my go-to. So yeah, I own an espresso machine, and I still am lazy. So my
Very,
favorite coffee, though. Okay, that wasn't what you asked. You asked was my favorite coffee.
yes.
My favorite coffee I've ever had was a small batch coffee that they gave us for free. They gave every employee that worked at Starbucks at whenever this was, years and years ago, a bag of this very small batch coffee that they made specifically just to give to employees only. And it was the best coffee I've ever had from anywhere else. It was called Hacienda Alsacia. That's what it was called. That's my favorite coffee. I dream of this coffee, and it is gone.
Oh, I was gonna say, so I guess it's impossible to find again or even anything remotely close.
Yeah,
Nothing on.
I bet I could find something close if I really looked. I just, it's also I remember it being the best coffee I had, and so I imagine if I had it, it would be as good as I remember it. I'll preserve the memory.
Fair. I was gonna say nothing online research wise that could like lead you to it where it's like it's actually this. Just go here and you'll be able to find it.
Maybe this will be the thing that makes me find it again, because I never even thought to look.
You never know. I know that Starbucks releases a holiday blend every holiday season to
They
like
do.
grocery stores and stuff, even here in Canada. Fun fact
Hmm.
about Starbucks: did you know there's more Starbucks in Toronto than there are Tim Hortons?
I do now. That is indeed a fun fact. It's a lot of Starbucks.
There are 25.
Starbuckses?
Yes, Starbucks is. I believe my
Starky
count
buy?
at the time was there are 25 Starbuckses in Toronto last time I looked.
That is
And
several.
and there were less Tim Hortons. Starbucks is superior to Tim Hortons, by the way. I don't even care, dude.
Hot take time.
Hot
I
take.
literally don't even know what Tim Hortons is. I'm American, or I'm from the United States, though.
Tim Hortons is a Canadian coffee chain that sucks. is what it is. It
I
is
I now that is now
trash.
what I think about them. Is I
Granted,
have
I will
nothing to
say
no
this: Tim
information to the
Hortons
contrary.
does have better food options than Starbucks does.
Ah, see, you
Because
gotta
Tim Hortons also does
can't have it
donuts
all.
and hot food and things like that, but mostly it's the donuts. Every time I go to Starbucks, there's nothing that you can like really get other than drinks. The stuff that they have that you can get outside of drinks, at least in Canada. We do have a mutual friend that currently works for Starbucks,
Mhm.
so that's a
Mhm.
thing. But as far as I know, in Canada, the food at Starbucks sucks and is overpriced, but the
Yeah, I
drinks
was about
are
to say
top
it's
notch.
fine. I think the food is fine. It's just severely overpriced, like absolutely ridiculously over. It's fine. Also, it's not good. But it's fine. But when you work there, you get it for free, so you eat it.
Yeah. I mean, I've only had food at a Starbucks once and it was not my forte, especially for the price considering it was
Mhm.
7 years ago and I'm like, you're charging that much for that? No, thank you. I'll just take my drink. Thanks.
Mhm.
Bye. But
Mhm.
yes, Starbucks in every way, shape, and form is superior to Tim Hortons.
You
Hot
heard it here,
take
folks.
of the day. So, of course, you're a game developer, so I'm actually looking forward to your answer to this question.
Uh-oh.
If you could create a game from an entirely different genre and add it to your favorite series, what genre of game would you add?
Okay, so if I could take a franchise I already really like and add a new genre game to it, is that am I understanding the
Yes.
question? Okay. Oh gosh, I literally have this answer like ready to go. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
You actually might already know this opinion of mine because I think it was answered a question of the day in the Lady Arcader server. Um, so I am a lifelong Blitzball stan. Okay, for Final Fantasy X, there is a mini game that's like a pretty okay, mediocre sports tactical game in that game. It's called Blitzball. I love this game. I think it's actually pretty well designed, as much as people tend to hate it. I would sell an organ for a standalone sports game about Blitz. That is my answer. Easily my answer.
Okay, but but you're creating a new game, entirely
Yes.
different genre, and adding
Yes.
it to a game.
Adding it to a game.
Yes, but
Well,
very
that
good
that
first part of that answer. I like that. Blitzball game.
yes.
Come on, Square, get out, get on it. You can do it.
Please, there's more people that want this than they realize, as I have recently found out.
Just don't, fill it with microtransactions or
They
NFTs.
would, but I would play it anyway. I don't even care. Just give it to me. Cause like the Blitzball minigame that's in the game is okay, but it's very clearly like a tacked on minigame in another game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Expand it. Make it a whole thing. That's what I say.
Okay, very fair, very fair. Well, quite the now, would you speed run this sports game? Now, there's the other
No.
question. If they made this its own thing, would
Absolutely
you
not.
speed?
I feel like sports game speedruns, with some exceptions, obviously, would be kind of miserable. Like, I don't have any evidence to back this up. It's just my vibe check.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Uh-huh. And
fair.
actually, Pyre, the game I answered one of my your other questions with, is technically a sports game. It's like a VN/sports game. And so I've thought about this.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I would like to thank you for coming on. It was most enjoyable talking to you about your
Yeah.
speedrun journey. If people want
Mhm.
to find you, where can they?
The best place to find me is on twitch.tv/roadkillrevenge. I stream at least once a week, speedrunning all the games we've been talking about today. I also am at Roadkill Revenge on Twitter, assuming Twitter is still a thing by the time this episode comes out. That's a coin flip. But we shall see. That
Yes.
is me.
Well, thank you once again. I super appreciate you coming on. And thank you all for listening to Speedrunners and Coffee. Until next time.